You know, fun fact about Naruto, it takes place in modern times. I was one of those casual viewers that did not take notice of this on a first viewing. Despite the VCRs, computers, and, well, satellite dishes. 1960s Naruto looks like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. And I hope I'm not the only one who feels that way. If you look at the inspiration I'm pulling up on Pinterest, a lot of those guys look like straight up Fred. But anyways, I put on a short bow tie for Naruto instead of like your typical long bow tie because I felt like it looks cute. And I chose this particular pose because I strongly associate this pose with people from the 1960s and the 50s for some reason. I'm not particularly sure why. I feel like I've seen this pose like for time and time again, like movies and posters and like magazines and all of that jazz. So as you can see, I did not use, I kept his hairstyle as typical Naruto because anytime I tried to use a different hairstyle from like a different decade, he just did not look like Naruto at all. It looked like some random guy. So I had to make his hairstyle basically the same across all decades. So, hopefully it fits somehow. And we should be about done with this. Okay, yes. This is 1970s Naruto. 1970s Naruto, I had a few choices from, the hippies and disco. But I went with, as you saw, I went with David Bowie because he had like some interesting design elements, or like his fashion was interesting. He had like the shoulder pads, and he had the patterns on his a lot of his like fashion, a lot of patterns, a lot of interesting patterns, and it kind of reminded me of like a knight, like a Japanese samurai. So I was like, okay, this fits. I feel like this design would be the one that wouldn't be like super out of place for a Naruto world, right? I mean, just look at it. It fits pretty well. I especially love what I did with the design. But all right, so 1980s. I want to do something a bit unique, so I went with the goth fashion design. And again, for those who don't know, the goth movement with the goth fashion style, the music subculture, it all started in the 1980s. And back then, they didn't have like Killstar or anything of that nature. So a lot of people just DIY'd their own clothing, which is why I'm drawing goth Naruto here with just like a basic biker jacket, because that's what a lot of goth kids did back then. They wore like biker jackets. It kind of just took what was around and they made it their own. So this ended up being, I think, my favorite design because it's like some weird fusion between like Naruto and Sasuke and because he's like dark, and it was an interesting challenge because again, this is goth, and goth and orange do not particularly go well together. It's more like when you see like goth clothing, it's more like black and purple, or black and white, or black and red. But orange is a choice. Now I had to minimize the orange, so it's like I think I only used orange for like part of the sleeves, and like a little bit on his shirt, and it somehow ended up working decently. Because if I used too much orange, it really just went from like goth to, I don't know. I'll explain it. But alright, so this is the 1990s. This is what the design I'm using is called a windbreaker jacket. It sounds like some kind of weird science fiction device, but apparently it was a jacket in the 90s. And it was really popular. I wouldn't know because I was barely alive back then. But yes, the jacket reminds me of slushies for some reason. So yeah, I don't know. If you saw on the Pinterest that I was scrolling through, they remind you of the slushy drink. But anyways, I gave him a bandana on his neck, because that was like another thing that they had going on back in the 90s. It was like this cool thuggish look that was going on. I don't know if they still do that. It was definitely pretty prominent when I was doing extensive fashion research, and I just kind of like included it. I noticed that like a lot of people kind of like to show off their chest. Maybe that was just the algorithm just showing me similar images to images I just kind of came across. But I don't know, I kind of liked it, so I was like, okay, cool. Naruto's kind of buff, and again, I think his hairstyle works the best in the 90s, because in the 90s they already had like spiky hair. It was popular. They had, what was it called, ice tipped hair, and that was really popular. So this definitely, his hairstyle definitely works the best for this decade. And that's it. And that's it from the 1960s all the way to the 1980s. And my favorite design, again, is in 1980s. It just looked pretty cool. If you're interested, let me know what your favorite design was. And if you like the video, and subscribe if you want to. And I will see you later.